Well, team, I know we're going into the Thanksgiving holiday, and producer Mark, there's football over the Thanksgiving holiday, right? That's a thing that happens that I see it in the background sometimes at the various homes where I've been there's the football thing that happens. But there's been some big stories in the news for football, and I didn't want to skip over them entirely, but I figured I'd bring somebody in who, for example, unlike me, knows that the Rams now play in Los Angeles and not St. Louis. You learn something new every day, especially for me in the world of sports. We got a sports expert with us, though. Our friend Clay Travis is with us now. He is the Outkick the Coverage host, also author of the book Republicans Buy Sneakers Too. Clay, thanks for coming back.
Hey, appreciate y'all having me. Thanks a lot.
So let's start with this editorial, New York Times editorial, which is how it came into my vision, my daily deep dive here, from Ta-Nehisi Coates, the cancellation of Colin Kaepernick. He's making the argument here that Colin Kaepernick is a victim of cancel culture after, well, everything, but also this tryout. What really happened with Colin Kaepernick, both at this tryout and also tell me what you think the reality is of whether he's part of cancel culture?
Well, I think that Colin Kaepernick has realized that as a martyr, he is more valuable than he is as a backup quarterback in the NFL, which is the job that he would have if he really wanted to continue to play sports. And so I think he made a conscious decision to wear the Kunta Kinte T-shirt and to perform in the fashion that he did with his own camera crew there and everything else because he wanted to continue to be a social justice warrior martyr for the woke sports media out there. And the reality is, look, this guy is a backup quarterback. And backup quarterbacks are not necessarily given a lot of attention in the NFL, certainly not if their starting quarterback is healthy. And I think Colin Kaepernick is aware that if he is on the sideline, not actually playing, that his value as a martyr declines precipitously. And so I think in many ways he sabotaged the tryout that the NFL tried to set up for him.
Now, one of the things that comes up when people talk about Kaepernick, and I mean, it was pretty amazing reading this New York Times piece. I don't know if you saw the Coates editorial.
Yeah, I read it. I mean, it was totally absurd and ridiculous, and the fact that that guy is considered to be some sort of intellectual heavyweight oftentimes just kind of boggles my mind.
Yeah, because what I've told from my friends who actually pay pretty close attention to the NFL is that Kaepernick, before the whole taking a knee thing, he was already dropping down the depth chart, and people didn't really care, and his career wasn't looking so good.
That's correct. He, in fact, had lost his starting job to Blaine Gabbert, who is not a well-known or well-received quarterback in his own right. And so, what the kneeling was, I think, a transparent ploy to draw attention to himself when he recognized that he was otherwise not going to be receiving very much attention. And again, I mean, look, he had a contractual obligation to stand for the national anthem, just like the NBA players do. And to equate him with cancel culture is frankly just absurd. Look, everybody in the NFL, whether you are the most talented quarterback in the league or the guy hanging on by his fringes to a special teams job, they're all subject to an equation that I like to say, which is so long as your talent exceeds your problems, you will always be employed. And the problem that Colin Kaepernick has is, look, if Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes took a knee to protest anything, they would still be employed in the NFL because they're three of the best, arguably the three best quarterbacks in the NFL right now in this league, right, historically and proven-wise. And so if those guys decided they wanted to make a political statement, they might get fined. They might face substantial blowback. But every team, I believe, would continue to employ them because they're that good at playing the position in which is so difficult to find talent, quarterback. The problem Colin Kaepernick had was not that he took a knee. It was that he took a knee and his talent no longer was sufficient enough for teams to be willing to put up with the challenges he brought to bear from a protest perspective. And I've kind of made this joke before using it from a hyperbolic sense, but look, I mean, Aaron Rodgers could take a knee and say that he thinks ISIS was unfairly treated by the Trump administration. And somebody would probably still employ him to play quarterback because he's just that good of a quarterback. And people would roll their eyes and say, I really don't care about the politics that he espouses. And the problem for Colin Kaepernick is he's not that good of a quarterback. So people do care because, again, his problems exceed his talents.
Now, speaking of people that are having problems on and now off the field, I did see, because it became a viral video moment that dominated the news cycle for a few hours, this incident with Myles Garrett where he swung his helmet. Give us the quick backstory of the what happened there, and then the aftermath, because I did see the storyline percolate for at least a few hours a couple days ago that there was a claim that there might have been a racist component that led to the swinging of the helmet, which a lot of people, myself included, thought sounded rather dubious under the circumstances. But what happened, and where are we now?
Well, for 6 days, there was no suggestion after the swung helmet hit Mason Rudolph in the head. Myles Garrett plays for the Cleveland Browns. Mason Rudolph is the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And at the end of their Thursday night football game, which happened, a week or almost 2 weeks ago now, as we move closer to Thanksgiving, we had Mason Rudolph get hit in the head with a helmet, which is kind of unheard of, flung at him by this defensive player. And for 6 days, nothing was said about the motivation other than Myles Garrett lost his temper. He apologized. He was saying all of that. And then at the end of that 6-day window, suddenly news came out that he was claiming that somebody, Mason Rudolph, had said a racial slur to him, and that was what prompted the attack. And the NFL said they had investigated it, found no evidence, and upheld his suspension. He made that claim in an appeals hearing. So what I just described it as was a racism Hail Mary, that his attempt at the last minute was to try in some way justify his behavior by citing the way that he had been treated, and I think that's just laughably absurd.
Is the punishment appropriate here for Myles Garrett for the crime?
I mean, I think it's a significant punishment, but I think the NFL knows that the importance of setting a precedent here is that using a helmet as a weapon is a dangerous position to be in. Mason Rudolph is not seriously injured, luckily for him, but he could have been. And I think the NFL needs to have its players know that this is behavior that is simply unacceptable. So Myles Garrett's going to be out for the rest of the season, and we'll see what happens at the end of the year with whether he's allowed to return to start next year, which I think he will. And the 6-game suspension feels about right to me.
Can I just ask you a quick lightning round of some stuff before Thanksgiving so I can pretend that I know something about football when I'm with my relatives who do?
100%, yes.
Who is the best quarterback in the NFL right now?
Oh, man, you just stepped into a huge debate. I think the best quarterback in the NFL right now is Russell Wilson. I think there's a strong argument for Patrick Mahomes, for Aaron Rodgers. Those are the three best. Lamar Jackson is having an incredible season, and he may be the favorite for the MVP. But those are the four that I would name off the top. Tom Brady, interestingly, not having that great of a season. So if you want those 5 names and that information I just gave you, you can fake it till you make it.
Well, I got one more. What is the worst coach team in the NFL right now?
Yeah, well, the team that's under fire the most right now, Jason Garrett is the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and they just lost to the New England Patriots, and he has done a really poor job of maximizing his talent. He's been on sort of the chopping block for a long time now, and the Dallas Cowboys sort of perpetually swing from the excitement and joy and pure jubilation of, hey, we're going to go to the Super Bowl, to the depths of despair after every loss. They're 6-5. May win their division, likely to make the playoff, but Jason Garrett has not endeared himself to the fan base for yet another season.
And who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? I got to ask.
Yeah, so if I were predicting right now, I think it's hard to say anything against the Patriots. So I would pick the Patriots out of the AFC, and I would pick the 49ers out of the NFC. And, God, I mean, it stinks to continue to pick them, but Brady and Belichick are the greatest coach and player combo in NFL history, and they aren't dead yet. And so as long as that's the case, I feel like they will find a way to triumph into the season, even though I think, like a lot of your listeners, I'd prefer that not be the case.
If you guys want somebody who knows about sports and really breaks it all down for you, you just heard it here, but Clay Travis has his own podcast, Outkick the Coverage, where you can check out. Also, his book is Republicans Buy Sneakers Too, which I know is true because I'm a Republican and I buy sneakers. Clay, have a very happy Thanksgiving, man. Thanks for giving us your time, and we'll talk to you after the holiday.
I appreciate that. Have a good Thanksgiving as well, and everybody else out there as well. Hope everybody has a great holiday.
So there's a story team that's making the rounds right now in some places on on the right. I haven't really seen it elsewhere, but here's the basics of it. And I just want to say that I can't really assess this other than to say that people that I know and think have good judgment say this is probably crap. But even when there's a story that is not true, sometimes there are some elements in the background of the story that are worth noting. But I don't know that it's not true. So, and it's reported in the Jerusalem Post, which is a reputable publication. And it is about whether or not Ilhan Omar is an asset of Qatar. This is the story that's out there. A witness in a deposition in a federal court in Florida has gone on the record to say and give some details about this. Here's the basics of the story. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was recruited by a foreign government, received funding from a foreign government, and passed sensitive information through intermediaries to Iran. A Florida court has been told. That doesn't mean the court has found, nor has anyone brought charges. Okay. The claims came during testimony by Kuwaiti-born Canadian businessman Alan Bender, who was giving evidence in the trial of Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad Al Thani. The Qatari emir's brother stands accused of ordering his American bodyguard to murder 2 people and of holding an American citizen hostage. His deposition, obtained by Al Arabiya English, was authenticated by the attorney for the plaintiffs, according to the publication. All right. Now, a lot of people on the right really don't like Ilhan Omar because of her politics, because of what she says, because of the anti-Semitic stuff she has said in the past. So people see this and they immediately jump at the story. I've seen a lot of people that follow Ilhan Omar's career and they've been following some of the other controversies, possible campaign finance stuff, the whole situation with her, the husband, and then the other situation with the brother, and what's going on with the allegation, I should say, of a marriage fraud. Which, believe it or not, marriage fraud is a crime punishable by up to 5 years in federal prison when it involves an immigration violation. So if you marry somebody, but you're not really getting married, you're just doing it so they can get a green card to be here, and you're found out, you can go to prison for that. And they do occasionally enforce that, which is so interesting because so much of the rest of immigration law is left as like, who cares, doesn't matter, we don't have to really enforce this stuff, but the Ilhan Omar story, people are saying it's flimsy. It's an allegation in court. Yeah, the guy's under oath, but who knows if they can. And he's just saying he was told this. There's no proof, so there's no proof. Here's what I want to note about Ilhan Omar, though. It is a bad thing when it is so very clear that the press has no interest in vetting, investigating, and looking at a person in politics because of that person's political beliefs and also because of that person's background. The media does not want to be seen as even investigating. And you could say that through an investigation of Ilhan Omar, not just on this Qatari thing, because this might be complete garbage. And I'm being honest with you. It doesn't seem to me like it's. I mean, is it theoretically possible? I mean, maybe, sure. Given her view of American foreign policy and her view of the rest of the world, could you see maybe some people using her as an agent of influence in the United States against foreign policy that would be in the U.S. interest? Yes. But that's very different than having any actual proof of the allegation, which we don't have. But these stories, a story like this, get more oxygen, get more attention, in part because we know we cannot trust the mainstream press to do what they would normally say they're doing, which is to vet a person, look into that person's background, and bring the public the truth about a situation, which they don't know. I mean, we know that they don't do that as a general rule, but they particularly are hands-off about certain people, and Ilhan Omar is one of them. So I would just note that I don't know if this story is true or not. It strikes me as unlikely, but I also know that we can't trust the press to tell us how much investigation has there been of Ilhan Omar by journalists regarding campaign finance issues and also the situation with the brother and the husband. And I don't even know but nobody wants to touch that stuff. Nobody wants to go near any of it. And usually journalists, when they have this is a member of Congress, a public figure, elected office, you would think that there could be some belief, some understanding that this person would be subject to a degree of scrutiny that's not dictated by politics and by intersectionality and wokeness and all the rest of it. But no, that is in fact the overriding consideration that they have here. So for those who were going to ask me about this, I don't have much more on this than just to say it doesn't strike me as likely, but you can't trust the press to find out any truth about Ilhan Omar that would be problematic for her. So that's kind of where we are. Also, I didn't get to mention this before. I find it, I know I keep saying nice things about Yang and Tulsi on the show, and I'm not trying to just do this as a thing, as a bit that I do on the show where we get into why Yang and Tulsi are the most likable of Democrats, although I think they are. I saw this piece though the weekend. It was so remarkable to me that Andrew Yang, #YangGang, Andrew Yang makes jokes sometimes, self-deprecating jokes about Asian American stereotypes. And this was interesting because usually what you see is that you're never allowed to make jokes about any, even if it's really meant to be playful and it's not supposed to be degrading in any way, but you're not allowed to make jokes about any non-white ethnicity as particularly as a white person anymore. It had been the case, I had thought, that you could, though, make self-deprecating jokes about an ethnicity if you were of that ethnicity. But even that rule in this current era of extreme wokeness seems to be changing a little bit. There is a concern that is Andrew Yang, quote, reclaiming stereotypes with Asian jokes? Experts say not so much. First of all, experts in jokes? Who are these people? This is NBC News. Experts in being funny? What are these experts we're talking about here? That's so interesting. Expertise is a very abused claim. But they're saying that he isn't doing a good thing by trying to reclaim stereotypes. They change the rules all the time. Some ethnicities, for example, can use slurs against that ethnicity as a means of reclaiming the term. We're told that all the time. But you can't use it if you're not of that ethnicity. But you can if you are. But now you can't make jokes about your own ethnicity. And I think the reason that they feel this way, although who knows, they probably change the logic behind this all the time, is because then it lightens everybody up a little bit where they might think they don't have to be quite so woke and quite so on guard. And maybe somebody would get the idea that you could make some jokes based on stereotypes where you're laughing with and not at an ethnicity. That would be an idea that the left considers dangerous. So they can't have that. So Yang is not allowed to make jokes about Asian stereotypes, even as an Asian American. That's the reality of the left today. I just wanted to note that.
What we will do is have a 4% tax on income, exempting the first $29,000. All right, good. You're better at arithmetic than I am, because what that means is if you are that average family in the middle who makes $60,000 a year, that means we're going to tax you on $31,000 at 4%.
Anyone who believes this is a fool, that this is where this will stop. They're going to create just a little carve-out tax to give you free health care. This is the Bernie plan now. This is the latest version of what we're being told the Bernie plan is going to be. But what they're saying here is that, or what Bernie's saying rather, is that 4% above $29,000, and you'll never have to worry about health care again. My friends, no way. No way. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. That 4% tax won't be enough. Then you know what happens? It becomes a 5% and then a 6% tax. You have to fund the programs that Bernie Sanders is talking about, to even begin to fund them. you would have to raise taxes dramatically, not just on millionaires and billionaires. This is the essential lie that they keep telling, but on everybody. And taxes that get raised that much on people across the board are going to have all kinds of implications for jobs, for productivity, for just wealth creation overall. We are in a remarkable period right now, the longest bull market in the history of the United States, lowest unemployment in 50 years. Things are very prosperous right now. Why would we start listening to the socialists at this point in time? If America goes down this path of socialism in 2020, we're going to get what we deserve. We're going to get it long and hard. It's going to be a rough way forward. We have all the empirical evidence we need. We have all of the data. And just look around you, what's going on in the country right now. Look at all the ways that we can try to judge on the numbers how things are going. You're going to hand over control of the economy to the Bernie Sanders wing of the Democratic Party? I mean, I know you won't listen to the show. I mean, there's some liberals who listen, which I appreciate. Liberals are like, he's a bit of a savvy fellow, this Sexton. We've got to keep an eye on him, make sure he doesn't get a little too popular, a little too powerful. But the truth is, Bernie Sanders' plan would be a disaster for you. And I know you know that. But there's so many people who don't believe it. When I was at Politicon debating Bernie Sanders' healthcare spokesperson, the person assigned to his campaign, she's just living in a fantasy land. You're going to have great doctors, great health care. Everything will be super efficient. It's going to be fantastic, and you never have to worry about paying for any of this ever again. Well, it's not true. By the way, by the time we figure out it's not true, you'll probably have had one generation that has gotten used to having their health care paid for by the government. It won't be very good, but they'll get used to paying for it, and then they'll just put this unsustainable burden on future generations of paying for the health care that they've already gotten. This is the doomsday machine within our own political and economic system that no one is willing to face up to. Nobody is willing to defuse the debt bomb. Nobody is willing to say that you can't keep doing this. Promising things, giving things today, and then promising that somebody else will pay for it in the future. And this becomes the easiest scam in the world. I mean, if your taxes are never going to get raised in your lifetime, why wouldn't you say, yeah, give me all the benefits you want right now? Make it somebody else's problem. This is just intergenerational socialism. That's all it is. And this is what Bernie Sanders is promising you without saying as much by claiming that they're going to pay for your health care and everything's going to be fine and all the rest of it. But this might even be a worse analysis from the guy who's supposed to be the smart one of the Democrat candidates, or the smartest one of the Democrat candidates now, Mayor Pete Buttigieg. He has this to say about the Syrian Civil War. Play clip 10.
Now, you mentioned the security component of climate. This is very important because we are already seeing evidence that conflict and migration crises are increasing because of things like droughts and fires that are accelerated by the problems in our climate. There's some evidence that this contributed, for example, to the Syrian Civil War.
I mean, this is an absurd stupidity. Climate change contributed to the Syrian Civil War. What? This is so beyond bonkers. But I've heard other people say this too, because climate change is a religion. Climate involves everything, right? Oh, it's warmer outside, so then it's more likely that people might be outside, and then climate change is causing murders in the streets of Chicago because it's warmer, right? And murders in the streets of New Orleans or New York or wherever. I mean, it's kind of true, but is it climate change that's causing people to murder people, or people murdering people? This is absurd. This is the fallacies of causation here are truly mind-blowing. And, when you have the supposed genius, really, of the Democrat. Oh, he's a Rhodes Scholar. I told you before, Rhodes Scholar, not that impressive. That's all. It's the Rhodes Scholar now is like the Nobel Peace Prize. Anybody who knows anything knows. That's like, come on. Very political. But yeah, climate change is the cause of the Syrian Civil War. You have to stretch hard to think of ways that liberals could be crazier these days. And this is why, I saw the segment last night that Tucker did on his show where he said that the only person in the Democratic Party who could unify the entire Democratic Party, has the national recognition and favorables and everything to wipe away all the Democrats' problems right now from the primaries, is Michelle Obama. And she says she doesn't want. Oh, but he played a clip of Obama saying in 2006, "Oh no, I'm not running. Of course, I'm definitely not running." And we end up having Obama as president for 8 years. I've talked to you about the outlier possibility of a Hillary Clinton run, and I don't think it is likely, but I don't think it's impossible. I think you also would have to say it is not impossible for there to be a Michelle Obama candidacy and a Michelle Obama presidency. She would be, make no mistake about it, she would be formidable, my friends. And, we're used to seeing these deeply uninspiring Democrat candidates who have all kinds of problems and negatives and unfavorables and all this stuff. Michelle Obama is a widely beloved figure and has all the connections and all the name recognition the Democratic Party could ever want, and then some. Do I think she's going to get in? No, I wouldn't put money on it, but if she did, I do believe she would be the candidate. And I do believe that Trump would have his hands full. I think that that's true. You've got to just think back to, the narratives of the Obama administration and the feelings of what Obama left the Democratic Party with after he was no longer in office. I mean, we've been saying the only way to set right 2016 is if Hillary somehow becomes a candidate and beats Trump now in 2020. That's one narrative for sure. But think about the narrative of Michelle Obama and the Democratic Party going forward if she were to run. I don't know. Look, I've never talked to Michelle Obama. I don't know. Everyone says, oh, she'll never do it. She'll never do it. Does anyone doubt that if Michelle Obama announced that she wouldn't? First of all, Joe Biden's support would evaporate overnight. Everybody right now that would vote for Joe Biden would be like, oh, sorry, Joe. Back to now we're going to Michelle Obama. See you later. So in the national polls, she would be the front runner. That I am absolutely confident of. And then look at some of the other candidates out there too. What support lingers for Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama? I mean, if we're thinking a little bit outside the box here, my friends, the way the Democrats can turn this whole thing around is something like a game change moment. And in this case, the game change candidate would be Michelle Obama. And, look, I was not a fan of the Obama presidency's policies at all, as you know. I went to the mat trying to fight against them when I first got into this world of media. This is the thing that I don't think Democrats have the strategic foresight to bring, to make this happen. I think the Democratic Party is too at war with itself in too many ways. And maybe Michelle Obama just also doesn't want to do it. She'd rather just be super famous and super rich and have everyone talk about how wonderful she is all the time when she just had to be the first lady. That's it. Just had to be first lady. She's the most wonderful person ever. But you never know. Tucker did a segment on it last night. I was watching it and I was like, I think this is I think he would be onto something if this were reality. But right now it is just speculation, which pundits in political season love to do.
It's time for Roll Call.
Facebook.com/Buck Sexton for roll call or TeamBuck at iHeartMedia.com. So, by the way, just one quick note. I got a tweet last night. This is very nice. I just said something about my friend Sarah Carter because I saw her. I watched a little Fox last night. Usually I'm too busy, but I watched some Fox last night. And I said something. I said I was watching my buddy Sarah Carter be awesome on the Hannity Show. She's a great journalist and one of the nicest people out there you'd ever meet. And Johnny Joey Jones, who's also a super nice guy, Purple Heart recipient, military EOD veteran, he responded to me, from my experience, Buck climbs the ladder with one hand and reaches down with the other. That's rare in this business, and I applaud it when I see it. And I told him that was very nice. And that made my day. It was very nice of Johnny Joey. He's now a Fox contributor. Very nice of him to say that. And not that I not that I help people behind the scenes for accolades, but I've helped a lot of people behind the scenes for somebody without a lot of clout in the business. So it was nice to get I do it because I like to do it. I think it's the right thing to do, but it was nice to get a shout out from JJ over at Fox News, Johnny Joey Jones, about that one. I guess that would be JJJ, but about that one. So it was very nice of him. All right, let's get into the roll call, shall we? Justin is going to kick us off here. Hey, Buck. Working in pharmaceutical supply chain, I can tell you how to reduce prescription medication costs starting today with no effort by the government. Today, our patents expire after 20 years, and it can take up to 10 years from filing to get them into the market. That means the millions and billions of dollars we spend on R&D and other activities have to be recouped, and a profit made in 10 years before a product goes generic. This actually hurts the early adopters of a new treatment the most, as they are most likely the most sick, and the current treatments aren't working. As such, they pay the brunt of this. If the patents were extended another 10 years, that could literally cut the costs in half, as we could amortize the costs even further and reduce the cost per dose, as we'll be living more prior to losing our patents. Justin, that's interesting. I mean, I just feel like you're kind of dispersing the cost more over a longer period of time, which ultimately means that consumers are still paying the same amount, but it would mean that in the short term, as you point out, people that are desperate for for new drugs, and when they have drugs that aren't working, that might help them. So certainly an interesting way to approach it. I'd have to look at how the math would work out on that. Let's keep in mind, I mean, patents are, in a sense, a government intrusion in the marketplace, right? I mean, you're giving people, to incentivize research and development, you are giving a temporary monopoly to a company, monopoly via government regulation, government legislation. So, you're not it's not just the market operating. You got a product and somebody else can make that product. Well, patents are open to interpretation, and there's a balancing test that is done of how long. But I mean, for example, I think like Mickey Mouse is still under. I mean, there are things that are patented that are now going on like 100 years old that are still copyrighted. I'm sorry, not patented. So, and people argue that wasn't initially supposed to be the way the copyrights worked. The fact that the Beatles catalog from the 60s is still worth, billions of dollars or whatever it is. At what point does it fall into common usage and, we could play a Beatles song here and not worry about getting sued? I'm just saying. TJ, did producer Mark say that he shucked corn and skinned a cow over the weekend? Wow, what a standard American. Sounds like Buck needs to hang out with Mark more in the off time. I bet Mark catches catfish from dusk till dawn, not to mention he can probably skin a buck and run a trot line. Yeah. Do you know how to do all those things?
Yeah, of course. I go fishing in the Hudson River often. I just have to get rid of the dead bodies also. So I'm actually part NYPD agent. I help them with the dead bodies, and I go fishing at the same time.
Well, funny, man. I can tell you that I've actually gone fishing in the East River.
Why? For what?
Yeah. Striped bass.
That you would eat that?
We took it to a fancy restaurant on the Upper East Side, and they filleted it for us right there.
Disgusting.
No, it's an estuary. It comes in right from the ocean.
Do you know the disgusting things that are probably in that river?
Yeah, but you've seen the fish. They have a filtration process, the gills and stuff. It's fine.
Next, you say you're going to drop something on the floor of the subway and then eat it. That's the same thing.
I mean, I have a strong immune system. Trying to make sure. Even producer Brandon looked back on that one. He was like, "That's
I need
gross,
to get
dude."
some glass between you and I here.
I mean, it's going to be flu season soon, so get after it. And by the way, did you get a flu shot?
No.
Are you a flu shot guy, Brandon? I think I'm going to get one because I don't want to miss a whole week of the show. Because I had the flu 3 years ago, and for a week I was immobilized. I couldn't do anything.
What happens if both of us get the flu?
Then producer Brandon gets to run the show and do the show, and you'll hear a lot about Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Appetite for distraction? What is it? Distortion. Yeah, you can yell. I'll repeat what you say over the mic. Aaron. Whoa, this is long. Buck, I was wondering if you could address COPA when you returned from the holiday. It was a law passed in 1998, of course, authored by a Democrat. Recently, YouTube had to settle with the FTC for $170 million and change its rules as a result. That means that a lot of good, clean family content will be wiped out financially. For one, because they're not allowed to use targeted ads. This makes no sense to me, et cetera, et cetera. I love free market. I hate to see regulation. Aaron, I don't know much about COPA. All I know, this is COPPA. Not like Copacabana, right? That's a different COPA. Or right?
Yes, that's a different
Or the
Copa.
Copa Mundial, the World Cup, for those of us who like to watch a little soccer because we're barely American. Aaron, I don't know much about the COPPA. other than what I saw on the show Silicon Valley, which I do find to be a very funny show, quite a clever show. So I got nothing for you on that right now. Then I'll have to look at it. Maybe I'll come back to it after the holiday if producer Mark reminds me. Usually he guilts me into it. He says, you promised the audience. He's your advocate here in the hut. I just want to do what I want to do. I'm an artiste here in the hut. He makes sure that I keep promises to the degree that I can.
It's all up to producer Brandon after Thanksgiving.
That's true, actually. Producer Mark is going to be not thinking about us as he is downing, mudslides and Mai Tais in Jamaica.
And
so if you
pina
see
coladas. Love those.
all of those things. We are going to do a live show tomorrow, my friends, so you should listen tomorrow. We'll have a special Thanksgiving extravaganza. Also, over the holiday, when you're talking to friends and family, what are you going to tell them? Download the Buck Sexton Show. Subscribe on iTunes. Best podcast out there. Talk to you tomorrow. Shields high.